right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're bringing up your feedback in just a bit at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. My guests are still with me here. Honorable Geoffrey Ruku, Member of Parliament for Mbeere North, Honorable Dan Manzo, Senator for Makueni, and Gabriel Muduma, Governance expert and communication expert. We're talking about the attempt for the Assembly to regulate picketing, which is a petition brought up by Honorable Ruku here. And we're talking about where to draw the line. Honorable Manzo, do you agree with Honorable Ruku, though, that there is need, that sometimes these demonstrations can be violent? You sound to me like it's the how, that's where the problem is, but not so much.
Yes, and that's why I said all that is needed are regulations. And what Honorable Ruku needs to do is a little bit of research and see what the then Attorney General, Honorable Wako, did in the year 2000. Remember, some laws address a prevailing political climate. You remember, those were the Kanu days, the last days of the Moi regime. And he came up with very good regulations, drawing these regulations from the Public Order Act and drawing these regulations from the Penal Code, such that the moment a well-meaning demonstration begins to take a new form, that's why the office at the level of an OCS or inspector, you know, a rank of an inspector, actually that's what the regulations say. It's not that they are expired. And that's why the police have not won a single case of anybody arrested with unlawful assembly. Because the police must also follow. They must issue a proclamation order which is loud and clear. And and that's done all over the world. Kenya is not unique. There are demonstrations, even worse demonstrations, in many other countries and many jurisdictions. So this officer announces and gives people time to clear. Now, what happens when you are being dispersed? The law also says it is a decision now you have made to continue carrying on with the demonstrations. And whatever happens there, the government is not liable. Because I can see he's talking about liability. Nobody becomes liable while now that proclamation has been loud and clear. But the moment you don't do proclamation, the moment you just attack people to please the people in power or to please politicians, then you know you have broken the law, and there must be this regulation. So what is needed is not a new law. It's not a new act of parliament. It's not an act seeking to amend the constitution. What Honorable Ruku is trying to do is to amend the constitution through the back door. And there's always a cure of this. Should they push it politically, just like the bill which has just passed, the finance bill, then the courts are there to go and reverse. And you remember the security law, the famous security laws people fought for. We went to the High Court, and they were all, you know, they were nullified. So even what he's trying to do, it will be nullified by the courts the moment it seeks to amend the constitution through the back door, the moment it seeks to abuse the constitution, because the constitution is the supreme law. Any law which is inconsistent with the constitution is null and void, just like this new bill of Mr. Ruku is null and void ab initio. It is dead. It is stillborn, and it cannot be because it is seeking to abuse our constitution. So let him make regulations, draft regulations for the Honorable Kindiki. They will go to the committee in the National Assembly for delegated legislation. They will go through public participation, and Kenyans will amend accordingly. Even this law is making, we are now going through public participation on this law. And my position is, it is unconstitutional, it is null and void ab initio, it is seeking to please President Ruto and the prevailing demonstrations in the country. The right to demonstrate is a right of the people. It's guaranteed by the Constitution, international charters, all over the world. We cannot have now our own Kenya in a small pocket to please Honorable Ruku and President Ruto. But it must be a law for everybody.
It's seeking to stop picketing. It's just seeking to regulate how it is done.
And that's why I'm telling him to make regulations. In fact, there are existing regulations, all that they are expired. Renew the regulations. You don't need to over-legislate. Once you make the regulations, you are good to go.
I'll come to you, Ruku. This is your bill, so you're the one who has the final say.
The major problem I think we've been having, as far as Article 37 go, is the explanation. But you see, the conformity to which most people try to understand that article is where the problem is. That's why I told you we must have a very sharp distinction to what a peaceful an unarmed demonstration or picketing should be or should look like. All right? So when somebody comes and tells you that if there are going to be demonstrations, there always a very high chance, and Trevor, me and you have been in this city, we know every time there's demonstration, there's a high chance, as it has always been, that people's property will be vandalized, people's vehicles, we've seen loss of lives, we have seen the breakdown of the law. I mean, these are things that have happened in our side as we see. And you have people who use that nuance or that name demonstration alone as scare tactics or as a scare tactic because it has worked and it continues to work. So how does that filter in with progress, with development, with learning, you know? And I'm talking about all the domino effects of a nation, of the ones that drive a country. If you have, and we saw this, there was a time we were told demonstrations or were going to Mombasa. Yeah. And it happened that we had a cruise liner that was coming to Mombasa. Guess what that cruise liner did, Mheshimiwa? It went to Dar es Salaam. Imagine. So I am telling, the reason is, would we not have explained to that cruise liner, oh, you know, our demonstrations are peaceful? Yeah. You have investors who want to come and invest in a country, and the first thing that they do, and by the way, if there's something that investors have nowadays, it is choice. Yeah? The stability is an amazing thing for a country that is really eyeing for people to come and invest. It is actually a #1 thing that most investors will look for. Tranquility. Is there peace? Yeah. What happens? You know, if I come and put in my money there, will I get return on my investment? Or will it go to the dog? Will it go to waste? Yeah. You saw somebody crying the other day. But will these regulations help? Of course they will. Of course they will. And let me tell you what I think. What I think, as much as we are talking about regulations and putting them into government and putting them into the right mannerisms, yeah, is we all agree here that first of all we are not stifling democracy. Like you said, they'll still continue. I don't think there's anybody bloating that article. The question and the debate that we are having today is how can we ensure, just like we mentioned in other cities of the world, that as demonstrations are ongoing, production is not affected, yeah, that children are still going to school, all right? Okay. That the person who we saw crying, who had invested, taken a loan and bought a matatu, which was banned on Gong Road, and the insurance tells you that they're not going to pay for that matatu. Where do you expect such a person to go? And then social media has done it rather, yeah, to the investors of the world. The first thing that they'll look up is the social media. Mm-hmm. How is this city? You know, where does it rate in the grand scheme of things? Mm-hmm. And if this is what they're going to see, guess what? Like I told you, if there's something that investors have, it's choice. It's choice. Okay. And a friend of mine called Vincent is asking, says, ask Honorable Ruku, at what stage do political demonstrations become violent? We have always seen demonstrators sing, dance until tear gas comes in. That's when the organizers can't control, even the organizers themselves can't control their people at that point. Problem is the government and police.
Trevor, before I answer that question, it's important to put this into context. Yeah. Context. Yeah. The object and purpose of the act. Okay, and allow me to read, that's section 3 of the bill, okay, that the object of and the purpose of the act is to, 1, recognize the right of peaceful assembly. Okay. To recognize the right of the peaceful assembly. B is to ensure, so far as it is appropriate to do so, the person may exercise the right to participate in public assemblies. And 3, to ensure that the exercise of the right to participate in public assemblies, demonstration, picketing, and the presentation of petitions to the public authorities is subject only to such restriction as necessary and reasonable, yeah, in a democratic society, yeah, in the interest of 1, public safety, public order, and protection of rights and freedom of other persons. So very much okay. So this is the object of the act of the bill, and we can't, you know, Trevor, we have a weakness in this country, that anything that is coming from the other defined of the house is completely ravished, is completely banned. We can't develop our country with such kind of a notion. This is a country where all of us, whether you're in opposition or in government, we live in this country. We have a responsibility to ensure this country is good for all of us, whether in opposition or in government. That should be, you know, the foundation, the basics, the bare minimum. And what we are saying, we have seen demonstrations in the past, how they have been conducted in a different path. The other day, I think last week, we saw demonstration in Kisumu, in Kericho, in a tea farm. They were very ugly demonstrations, where property was completely destroyed. Is this what we want to continue? Saying that we cannot put into effect Article 37 of our Constitution? Or,
so in that case, who would you have wanted to be held liable? Because there's also that back and forth where the organizers say that it was the people who came and infiltrated our demonstrations. Those were not our people. So how do you...
To answer the question of the person who has asked the question, is Vincent.
Yes.
If you go to section 13 of this proposed bill, you see that it talks about the powers of police during the assembly or demonstration. So it means already that the assembly or demonstration has been granted. It is constitutional to go and do demonstration. But within, when demonstration is happening, one of the responsibilities of police is to ensure there's no loss of life or property. And if there is loss of life and property, then we should hold police officers accountable. So to ensure that there's no loss of life and property, life and property, what should the police do during the demonstrations? That is exactly what Section 13 of this proposed bill talks about. How the police should be able to conduct themselves. Because the cardinal role of police is to ensure no loss of life, no loss of property, whether in demonstrations or not. So therefore, they should be given powers by law to act in a certain manner that no one will lose life and no property will be destroyed.
All right.
That is what Section 13 talks about.
All right. Manzo,
yes, that's pretty good, and that is exactly what already we have in our laws. We are not addressing this current situation. You see, because of lack of regulations and what has happened, if you do not disturb any demonstration in this country, like the recent meeting of Kenya Kwanza, in a recent meeting of Azimio in Kamukunji, if police went to disrupt it, you will have gotten all that you're looking for. You will have gotten destruction of property, you will have gotten loss of lives. But they left them go on with their business, and everybody went to school, all businesses went on. And this is just talking 2 days ago. So if the police doesn't politically disrupt peaceful demonstrations, I can assure you demonstrations can be very peaceful. It is true. 1 or 2 people, thieves, come into a demonstration, they can easily be monitored and that's why you give a notice 3 days prior to the meeting for police, the local OCS of that area where the meeting will take place or demonstration will take place, to provide security and to organize themselves. And if the police, that's why they are given 3 days notice. But what has tended to happen is the notice is given and it is even rubbished by police politically. So it becomes a political issue. And when it becomes a political issue, then it crosses to a realm of self-determination, that your rights are being muzzled, and therefore then you must determine yourself how you want to be ruled. This is not the way you want to be ruled. So all these laws do exist, and that's why the police are given notice, and then they prepare themselves. And where the police doesn't bother with the demonstrators, then nobody bothers with anybody. Recently, the police allowed the business community to demonstrate up to Parliament, and it was a very rough demonstration. But because the police never interfered with it, because it came from people on the side of government, nobody's property was destroyed, and the message got home that we businessmen in this country should have fair competition, and the government began implementing. But now when it is opposition demonstrations, then now they become unlawful, they become unconstitutional, and police go on and use live bullets. The experience of shooting Honorable Raila's car 7 times is only that it was a bulletproof car. Today we'll be talking of a different story in this country. We'll be talking probably of civil war. So police must also know that their actions, every life matters. And the moment you attempt to assassinate, then that's no longer demonstrations, that's no longer prevention of crime. That is forcing people into self-determination. And that's how civil war comes into a country. Because it goes into a level, if your rights are so muzzled, then the UN Charter allows you self-determination. There are serious laws. So this law, which is being brought in by Honorable Ruku, is a mischievous law.
Okay.
Trevor,
attempting to amend the constitution through the back.
Trevor,
it's not a law in good faith.
If the good Senator Manso, if he has taken time to read the proposed act or the proposed bill, whatever he's saying will not be same. Probably, it is good just to mention what Section 13 on the police powers, so that it can be slightly enlightened on what the bill
but that's already
talks
in the
about.
Police Act.
No. Senator,
I have even practiced this law in courts for many years.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Okay,
that's why we are proposing a new law. Because, for instance, with the demonstration we have seen in town, they are not given a specific route to follow. The demonstrators choose whichever route they want to follow. The bill is proposing, when you want to do your demonstration, you have to say beforehand that I will use this route, and you cannot take any other route. That is not in our laws at the moment. At the moment, you just say, I will be demonstrating, and you can move from Uhuru Highway to Arambe Highway to any other street. From there, you go to Kamukonji. From there, you go to Kipra. The law is specific. It says that when you want to do demonstration, please go to police, tell them, I will use this route, and it's only that route they will enforce to ensure you demonstrate using the route you mentioned. Okay? It is not there at the moment. In case, also appropriate distance between the demonstrators and other people who are carrying out their day-to-day activities. There must be appropriate distance, and that distance must be enforced by the police. It is not there at the moment in the laws Senator is talking about.
Look at the regulations of Amos work.
By the way, I sit in the Committee of Delegated Registration. Even today at 11, we have a meeting to look at the regulation of universities, Act regulations. So I exactly know, Trevor, what I'm talking about, because I sit in the Committee of Delegated Registration. Okay. So whatever Senator is talking about, we can't put a regulation which will expire in a couple of years.
We will let you square it out in Parliament.
We need to put a law for posterity, for the future of this nation.
Gabriel, before I bring in feedback on this and then move to a different topic.
Very quickly, and I hope the two Eshibuas will agree with me. Demonstrations and picketing notwithstanding, there's something which I did, and I really went because of the demonstrations that were happening. And so I went to this western city, and I was asking how, or when there's demonstrations and picketing, what happens? You know, what have you put in place? And I was taken to a place where picketing and demonstrations are done. there is actually a place reserved for that. And I asked, so it's not generally that anybody can wake up and decide this is what it is? They said, no, no, no. The laws and the applicable ordinances that protect that demonstrator must also protect somebody who is in production. And I think those are some of the regulations. That is the kind of law that I would like to see. That as much as somebody is being protected to demonstrate, I am protected to run, to open my shop and have no fear that somebody will come and, you know, do ills and, you know, damage my business. But more so, there's something else that is created in that environment. And I call it an opportunistic environment for vices. And Mheshimiwa will agree with me. This, you can equate, Trevor, to the reason why a policeman will stop you in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning. You're not doing anything wrong. You're walking, but a policeman can pull you over and ask you, hey, my friend, where are you going? Why do they stop you at that particular time of night? Or, you know, why not during the day? It is because during the night, it creates an opportunistic environment for people to do ills, correct? Yeah. So, and I think this is something we need. It's a conversation that must happen not only in the media, but also must happen on the floor of the House. Mheshimiwa, when such bills come to the House, you people don't run, don't exit. Face it head on, discuss it, sit, deliberate, and come up with answers. Because at the end of the day, we vote them to debate. We don't want, when a debate or whatever bill comes to the floor of the House, the last thing we want to see somebody who is getting paid through the taxpayer is them folding their coat and walking out. That should not. In fact, if there's a bill that you people should come up with, is a bill that there should not be walkouts in Parliament.
That you sit through to the end.
Sit through, argue, you know, lose.
Even if you know it's a lost cause.
Well, of course. Let me tell you, Trevor, do you know something? Can I shock you? Yeah. After every election, you'll never have a parliament that's equal. It has never happened. You'll have one that has a majority and a minority. I would love for debate to be there, even if you're losing. Honorable Manzo, stick to your guns. Let us actually see you argue a point home, represent your people. That is why we paid you to be in that House. So I think when this bill comes, Bwana Manzo and Mheshimiwa, argue it out. Give us something to be proud.
Or make amendments.
Or make amendments. Negotiate.
Section 15.
Hold on 1 second. Let me read some tweets on this conversation. Then I'll give you a final word on this because we are moving to the next topic. Let's see some of your feedback on this conversation that we're having before we move on to the next one. At Trevor Mbiji at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Daybreak. I see Sir Nixon Dugire says, I support the regulations considering that there has never been an address of what to do with those who pelt stones during demonstrations, and more so compensation of destroyed property and lives. In fact, the eyes have it. Okay. Mr. Gavin says, now the reality of things are our police are going rogue as well as the government. It's true we get to a point where properties are destroyed, but do they ask why? The sharp distinction Muduma is asking is same as political rallies are. Okay? Honorable Lillian Sioi says, now funds have been disbursed to counties and constantly Azimio has funds to conduct demonstrations. Those governors using county funds to fund demonstrations should be called to book. Okay? Babu Michael says, the whole of the police system in this country is not independent. Their decisions always are not theirs, but of the government of the day. So giving powers to them is like dedicating the same powers to the government of the day. Okay? Jim Musoma says, Ruku's bill can't see the light of day. Even if it's passed and assented, limitations of the Bill of Rights is well stipulated in the Constitution and cannot be ridden by an act of parliament that leaves freedom of speech and expression in the mercies of police. Babu Michael again says, it's true the Kenyan demonstrations are no longer peaceful. The problem is that those involved in the unlawful acts are just thieves and muggers. They don't have anything to do with the demos because they got no jobs and they're mostly young people, youth. Brian Chemwa says encourage dialogue between protest organizers and relevant government officials, facilitate negotiations to find common ground and potential solutions. This approach can help address the concerns raised by the demonstrators and resolve underlying issues. Agumba Steve says we already have enough regulations to govern demonstrations. The problem is where will you apply it when all Kenyans have decided demos are the only ways to salvage themselves? Will they arrest all Kenyans? Okay. Mfalme Duncan says the part where police have power to cancel demos is not right. This is a way to suppress our freedom. Final word on this, Honorable Ruku.
I just wanted to mention that the Gun Senator talks about regression, and Section 15 of this bill talks about provision of delegated powers, that the Cabinet Secretary shall have the powers to make regulations for the better carrying into the effect of the provision of this act. So therefore, I do recognize, yes, every act can be more articulated through a regulation, and this is one of those acts. But we need to ensure the right of the persons who don't participate in demonstrations are properly protected, as well as the right of those who are demonstrating are also protected. This is the purpose of this bill. And to take liability, if you organize a demonstration which will lead to loss of life and loss of property, you are held accountable. You pay for that. And that's why the Act is proposing 1 year in prison, so that the loss of property can be a thing of the past, loss of life can be a thing of the past because of demonstration.
Okay. Let's shift gears now.
I agree the law can be improved and become better.
Yeah.
The political is bigger than what is trying to be addressed by this law. It's a political problem. And I think also we already have all this in place. All we need is regulations under the previous acts of parliament which are there. And I believe if that is done, we will sort out this problem more politically than really by legislation. That's why when the businessmen of Nairobi were demonstrating, there was nobody who was injured or nothing was stolen. And the police never went there, and they had given, when you give notice, you give your routing and everything you intend to do. You plan the demonstration actually with the police, so that to ensure that no one is injured and there's no death. But in the event that happens, of course, somebody has to be liable. Okay. Currently, the law says if you are already participating in a demonstration and the proclamation has been given and you go on with the demonstration and you are killed there, then the government or the police are not liable. So it just needs a little bit of to purify it, to make sure that the right thing is done. And Kenya is a nation which is a global village. We live with other nations. The practices in other nations which are civilized should also apply to Kenya. Okay. But we should not enact a law to defeat the Constitution or the rights already guaranteed by the Constitution.
Okay. Muduma, final word on this, so that we move to next.
Again, and I'm glad I saw somebody talk about the freedom of expression and freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But again, I keep insisting that there's nothing called absolute freedom. It cannot be, and I cannot call it freedom, if what I'm doing is coming to the mic and all I'm doing is throwing abuse to Honorable Manzo. That, I can look at it and probably tell myself that is free expression, it's guaranteed by the Constitution, but it is not. What I'm trying to do is to apportion an absolute that I can do this and get away with it. I have seen so many people, point to the freedom of expression and freedom of speech. But when you hear the verbiage that's coming out of their mouths, you really wonder, is this what was enshrined in our Constitution? Is this what our Constitution meant? Because there's nowhere where very young people that we are seeing, somebody comes, takes the microphone, and hurls insults that you cannot even repeat on air to an elected leader, whether it's an MP, whether it's a president, whether it's Bwana here. It is a no-no. We should understand that when we are given these privileges, such as, the will, the Constitution allows us to freely express ourselves, we must know even with that freedom comes a way that it has to be managed. It's not an absolute freedom that I can say anything, that I can hurl insults at you, Trevor. We need to start being mindful. And that's why I agree with what somebody said, that for democracy to work, the electorate must be informed.
Okay. Let's switch gears now and talk about something else. And Honorable Manza, I'll start with you on this. The Azimio coalition is calling for civil disobedience against the Kenya Kwanza